Well guys, we're off on another adventure and you don't have to leave New South Wales to get a taste of the outback. So when those fresh clear days of spring turn up, we are compelled to head out into nature to view this spectacular country of ours. We cross the Lachlan River, Hillston, New South Wales, and we head to the remote destination of Willandra Homestead by the Moskule Road turnoff. And although we love the idea of living spontaneously, some planning is required when crossing most roads in this area. They are sealed and unsealed and become pretty slippery and unusable after only moderate rainfall. So it's a good idea to check with Caruthal Shire Council for the latest updates of road conditions. Checking out your tyre pressures is another must, and here's the knowledgeable Alex to tell you all about it.
Righto, we've just hit the gravel road and it's time to reduce the tyre pressures. On these types of roads, I'm going to reduce the pressures down to about 28 psi. Now, that's 28 psi. The tyres are relatively cool. I haven't driven that far yet, so I'm pretty sweet with that. Just remember when you drop them down, always check them in the morning because when they're a bit warm, you generally get about a 4 psi variant. Anyway, I'm going to drop the tyre pressures down, and once we do that, that'll assist us smooth out some of the rocks and bumps, and also just protect the tyres from getting stakes and things like that, because it just helps roll over some of the obstacles, I guess, and the rocks and sharp rocks and bits like that. So we'll just drop those down, and once we've done that, we'll be on our way.
And our baby runs a dream. We cannot wait to learn about the authentic Australian way of life at the homestead, see some amazing wildlife-rich landscapes, tour four-wheel drive trails, and try and get an understanding of past life in the outback. So come with us on this journey. I promise it will be worth your while. Here's an interesting fact. Australia has around 140 species of land snake and 32 recorded species of sea snakes. Some 100 Australian snakes are venomous, although only 12 are likely to inflict a wound that could kill you. The Willandra National Park is a protected national park that is located in the far west region of New South Wales in eastern Australia. This 47,900 acre national park is situated approximately 580 kilometres west of Sydney, 150 kilometres northwest of Griffith, and 64 kilometres by road from Hillston. It comprises of flat, grassy plain bounded to the north by Willandra Creek, and as you can see, it is pretty remote.
Righto, well, we've made it to Willandra National Park. This is the main entrance, and it's been a pretty cool drive in. I hope you've enjoyed the footage. Now let's see what else we've got to find. What do you reckon?
Oh, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
It's a common misconception that the outback is a harsh and barren place when all I can see are vast carpets of yellow and white poached egg daisies sitting pretty. Willandra is an important habitat for many native species, including the good old roo. Can you see Joey in Mama's pouch? Aboriginal occupation of this area is thought to date back at least 15,000 years, and the Europeans first settled here in the 1830s. Initially, this settlement was low-key pastoral activity and allowed the Aboriginal people to largely continue their traditional way of living. However, during the 1870s and early 1880s, extensive programs of fencing, buildings and dam construction took place as the first phase of European permanent settlement occurred.
Okay, so what you've got here is the main Willandra National Park homestead area, and just behind me is the homestead itself, which we're going to check out. There's the van getting ready for action, and we've got the ranger. There's an on-site ranger here, And they're not always here. At the moment they are on site and they've been extremely helpful, which is great to see. And then all the way around, that's the way into the park, just over my right shoulder there. National parks do have a works area, so that to help them maintain the park. They've got all sorts of equipment in there, plant and equipment. And then behind me is the men's quarters, and in there what's really good about that place there is that there's hot showers by gold coin donation, but it's quite refreshing to have a shower, certainly in this environment. So the main camp that we're camped at is about 400 metres away from here, and that's down the track there just behind me.
Willandra Campground is a classic bush campground set amongst the black box and the river Coolabah trees. This large camp that sits alongside the Willandra Creek is not only a great choice for individuals travelling, but for large groups as well. The sites are not marked and not powered, and bookings are required. Now, given that this is a remote campground, it is best to come well prepared. You will need to bring your own firewood and drinking water, and you can find some picnic tables scattered here and there. The facilities here though are amazing, and as Alex mentioned, there are hot showers available and running toilets too. Wait, what? A running toilet out here? Oh, that is such a plus.
Hey guys, it's the end of another day here at 4motion Adventures, and we're just chilling back. Olga's preparing a meal, and I just thought I'd give a shout out to a good friend of mine, George, who owns this business called Melcar. Now they're wine distributors, and before we left on this trip he gave me this barrel and said this is a barrel of laughs, and I didn't know exactly what he was on about. I thought maybe, you know, if you drink too much of it you start laughing, I'm not sure, but it's a port and it's in a barrel, as you can see, quite gimmicky. When I tried this port last night, and Olga and I obviously had a few samples together to make sure it was a good enough quality to share with you, I've got to say this port ended up being one of the best ports I've ever had, and I say that as genuine as I possibly can. So if you're interested in not only a good barrel that can contain some laughs and possibly some cries, depending which way you go, then you get on to George at Melcar, you tell him I sent you, and you too can enjoy a barrel of laughs. Thanks, George.
If you listen carefully, you'll hear the magic of nature. At dawn, you can watch the kangaroos graze and play. Over 100 years of grazing and pasture have modified the natural environment, yet the plants and the animals are gradually being restored. A sign of natural forces at play. The wetlands, grasslands and woodlands house around 23 species of reptiles. As well as being the best time for the wildflower displays, spring brings mild weather and fantastic bird watching opportunities. And with over 195 different bird species in this park, it is definitely a nature lover's dream. Starting with the office store and the Jackaroo's quarters, Alex checks out the Willandra Homestead. But here's an interesting fact. The importance of the Jackaroos on the station is demonstrated by the closeness of their building to the actual homestead.
Just behind me is the Willandra Homestead that was constructed in 1918. Now it wasn't till 1999 to 2001 that it was restored thanks to the help of the New South Wales Government. Now this homestead sits on the Willandra station property, and that property was established around about the 1880s. let's go check out some of the buildings and structures and see what we can get into. I have spoken to National Parks just now and they've told us that some of the doors are open, so perhaps we can get inside and have a look around. Let's go and check it out.
Step into the past of this fine old rural homestead which has been lovingly restored. Wander through the sitting rooms and office, viewing the wonderful photographs and reading the accounts of life on the station.
Believe it or not, this is an old tennis court. Now, many years ago when I came up to this property while working as a tour guide, I played tennis with my daughter Stephanie. Now Steph, if you're watching, you might remember us having a bit of a whack around here. It's changed a bit now, it's a bit overgrown, but this place certainly brings back a lot of memories for me. And that's what's good about going away on trips, they bring so many good memories. Anyway, let's keep going and see what else we can find. Behind me is the Willandra Creek that runs just behind the homestead. It really is a pretty sight, particularly if you were sitting here in the afternoon after a hard day's work shearing away. What a great place to relax.
A short drive from the homestead are the shearing quarters and sheds. We just love learning about Australian history. It enhances our appreciation and helps us understand what trials and tribulations were experienced by the people before us.
We're inside the shearers' quarters that was constructed in 1936.
You could just imagine how much comfort these humble rooms provided the shearers back in the time.
Let's go check it out.
Ah, the cook's quarters. If only these walls could talk, are the words written on a plaque standing almost erect outside this structure. As well as being the mess hall with its once upon a time roaring fire, this room provided an area for social contact, storytelling, and at times some wild behaviour. The large kitchen was in pretty good nick, and you could just vision the cook putting in his 15-hour day, baking bread and frying up oily lamb chops to feed the hungry men. Grubs up! Check out the meat house for a slab of history. A little larger than our modern day fridge, I think. Let's go find out if the cook is still in his cottage. Sheep shearing is probably the most iconic activity in rural Australia, and you certainly get an appreciation for the hard-working men of the time as we walk through from the yards to the classing and packing area. Just watch and imagine. Alex couldn't help but try and give me a lesson in shearing 101. Perhaps some things are best left to the professionals, Alex. Before we leave the park, we check out the Merton motor trail that is a 20-kilometre loop passing through various spectacular landscapes and wildlife habitats of the park.
Okay, so we're driving along this Merton station track and we come across some of these paddy melons. Now if you see these in the bush, look, they do look like a good little watermelon and probably you'd want to taste it, but let me tell you, these things are poisonous and not a good idea to try because they can make you very, very sick. They're an introduced species to Australia, but they do grow out here in the outback country. So if you see them, just leave them alone. But I'll tell you what they're good for, bush bocce. Just come across a little critter that's called a shingleback. Now, they're not dangerous or anything like that, but you obviously want to leave them alone. They're a beautiful little creature. They look like they've got two heads on them. Hello, mate. Yeah, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you.
This trail also passes Merton Outstation. Just consider what it may have been like on this and other isolated outstations of the Big Willandra. Well, we thoroughly enjoyed this scenic trail and we're speechless. Mother Nature really presented the outback in all its glory. Well, our time at Willandra National Park came to an end. We hope you enjoyed this slice of Australia. We are off now to the next adventure and we do it all for the love of travel.